Hello and welcome to Broll Redux. How's it going, David?
Hey Dave, how are you?
Doing good. Enjoying your new year?
I am working. I changed my shift, so now I'm going to work at 6 to 2:30 in the morning. Well, six. I get off at 2:30 now, so I have to get up at 4:45 to yeah. So, but I get Fridays and Saturdays off now, so it's nice. Partial weekend.
Yeah,
It's
the
hard in
daily
the airline.
grind. The daily grind.
Yeah, well, pays the bills and puts us on a plane when we need to go to Hollywood.
Yeah. And speaking of Hollywood,
Oh, that's a good
yeah,
segue, huh?
it's the
Look at
topic of
that.
our
I'm not
discussion
such an
today.
idiot after all.
Hollywood is imploding.
Hollywood is imploding. And yeah, Nakatomi. Oh, let's go. Let's for 1 minute. I just saw it on the news. Tucker Carlson was talking about on Christmas Eve about Nakatomi Plaza. I mean, it was an actual on the news, like they were talking about it. It's under attack, and they showed it. It was so funny. He said, "Hey, look at that."
Showing clips of diet, probably.
Right, right. That's so funny.
all,
Right. It
all,
is
all media doesn't do the research, so
right. Oh, yeah. They don't. They don't. They just throw it up there. If it bleeds, it leads. Right.
yep, yeah, absolutely. And
Hollywood is
what is
bleeding.
bleeding is Hollywood right
It
now.
is.
Hollywood
Right.
is bleeding money, with everything they got going on.
Right.
And it's something that has been started for years now. And there's been people who, since the 90s and early aughts that actually talked about that. I saw interviews with George Lucas who saw kind of like this happening with corporations becoming the heads of studios and
Right.
Christopher Lee. I saw a great interview with him about failing upwards, how
Mhm.
that's the producers nowadays, it's flop after flop after flop, but they still have jobs. They still have jobs, and they're controlling films that or budgets have been skyrocketing even more, right?
And they're,
And back in the day, it's like that was the job of the producer. If your film went over budget, you're already in trouble.
mhm.
If it didn't make any money, that's that's strike number two.
Yeah.
That's how you were getting jobs to producers. Like, hey, did you come in budget? Okay, if you came under budget, you're pretty much guaranteed to get another job.
Mhm.
If you came in under budget and your film made money, you almost had your pick
Right.
of what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
And like I said, nowadays it's completely different. We have so many facets and variables that are actually contributing to it. It is not just one thing. It is multiple things. And coronavirus actually was one of those big variables, right? It changed the way that the masses are actually ingesting, films
Right.
and TV shows. We're not going to the theaters as much anymore. We got used to streaming,
hmm
and
And
now
right. It was already on a downhill slope anyway. Yeah, like I said, the coronavirus just further greased the skids, so to speak, to really to change
facilitate,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
And even theaters, the theater experiment is so much different. When I was a kid, there was literally the dollar cinema. You could
mhm.
take a family for $4. Family of $4, and you
Yep.
go out to eat maybe before or after,
Right.
but you got to see a film for pennies compared to
Yeah.
what it is today.
Yeah, now it's 100 for four a family of four. It's at least $100 just to
Yeah,
go have a cheap night at the movies.
and who knows? You're going to pay that much money to be disappointed because most of
Mhm.
the stuff that comes out nowadays you're disappointed on,
Right.
or you rather stay at home and be disappointed in the comfort of your
Of
couch.
your own home. Yeah, where I can make popcorn myself and for 29 cents versus $6. I think
And
they're their own worst enemy. Like I said, the greed is definitely out there, and then the content is just rehashing things. There's no new. Again, we talk about it because they already have a built-in audience. We understand that, but give us a break. Give us something new. All those that 10% of that gets made, the 90% of those scripts are still on the shelf somewhere. This, when I went to see Kevin years ago. He took me. I flew out for the day, talked to him about Manny, and right across the street from the farmers market is the WGA office, and he took me to the library, and all these famous scripts are in there. Like, holy smokes! And some probably there's some that haven't been made, so there's plenty of content out there. It just the thinking has to change, and we know they have to make money, but you got to give us more bang for your buck, so to speak, and get away from these big tent pole movies all the time. Crank out 10 good movies versus one tent pole, and just
Yeah,
give us, like Silence of
and
the
you
Lambs we
mentioned
just talked
that
about last week. Give us a good movie where these actors want to dig into it and grow these characters and have something to sink their teeth into, not CGI blowing stuff up or some alien from
yeah, you talk about Silence of the Lambs,
right,
yeah, I mean, two characters talking most of the time,
right,
you make it just as intriguing as a big battle scene that we get nowadays, right?
right. Well, where
And
do
you
we
talked
meet?
about being tentpole movies, and you talked about how many they make. Back in the day, back in the 90s, these studios would make, you know, 40 or more movies a year.
A year, right,
Now they're making maybe eight, and every single one of those eight have to be a tentpole
right,
because, well, they're costing over 100 million, $200 million to make. It's
right,
like, yeah, you need it to actually be a tentpole movie,
right.
or you
Yeah,
won't make anything. Gone are the days where you're spending 20 million on a movie, and when you make over 100 million, that's a success, right?
mhm. Yeah, but they don't see that, and I think it's the grandiose of these, and it's probably old white guys like me making these decisions. And it's not uh, a reflection of the community, and that's what we're talking about DEI. And I work for United Airlines, and our whole philosophy is our staffing should reflect the community that we work inside, and that's what it should be, not a few controlling the masses, but because you need other people's opinions, other people's points of view. It's slowly getting there, you know. But I don't want to be forced down our throats. But there has to be more a rainbow, so to speak, in the sea level suites, above the line. Uh, the, because everyone needs to have their voice. You may not like it, but if I don't like this movie, I'm not going to go see it. But there's something I do like, uh, and it just has to get away from this huge money grab. 100 million, you could make 5 movies, and you know,
Yeah,
uh,
like I said, diversity and inclusion are great things, but they were actually doing harm to the cause, especially when it comes like the, animators.
mhm.
Animation nowadays and CGI is so hectic and so in demand, and they only give so much time crunch to them, and they spend so much money on it. With the DAI initiatives, they were hiring new young, inexperienced people to come in, and they were just tossing them into the fire, not giving them the opportunity to find
To
success,
grow into a job, right, and learn and then
the
appreciate and enjoy it.
yeah, to learn from mistakes and enjoy it. It's like you come in and it's like, okay, we're dealing with a time crunch. We need this done. Boom, go with it. It's like, oh, why can't you get this? With all the stress, time crunch, these animators aren't used to that. They've never, experienced that. They never had that chance to start off small and get into the bigger projects. They were just tossed into the fire and given no opportunity,
Right.
for that learning experience, which
Then-
which is sad.
right. Then the studio said, okay, if you can't do it, I'm going to ship it offshore. And that's what happens. Then there are people who are upset. Well, how come all these jobs are going offshore? Well, because you couldn't do it, because it's a vicious cycle. It's a catch 22.
Mhm.
Uh, it just it's the money.
Yeah,
I think
like I said, it is the money. Back in the day, these studios were actually run and owned by people who cared about the art, who cared about filmmaking.
I mean, most of them
Now,
were started by actors, Charlie Chaplin and Warner. All these they were started by actors who wanted to do something different because they wanted to get, that's what they wanted to do, and it's so far removed.
Yeah,
so
and
far.
now they're owned by Disney and Amazon and other big corporations who don't care about filmmaking.
They're
They
looking at
care about the bottom line and the
and
green. They
yeah,
care about
and
the money.
yeah, and providing for their shareholders.
Hmm.
And the
Hmm.
shareholders, if you have 20 shares, I mean, but it's corporations, and they don't. I don't want to say they don't care, but they're not getting the full picture.
Oh,
You know,
they don't care. They don't care about the audience. They don't care about what they think as long as they get that money.
right,
And even nowadays, I just saw a report how Sony is blaming the critics now for the failure of their Spider-Verse movies. Venom, Morbius, their new one, Craven the Hunter. It's like now, it used to be the trend is blame the audience.
right,
Oh, they didn't get it. They didn't like it. They're bigots. They're racist. Blah blah blah
right,
blah blah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or they're man child.
right,
Anything. They were just blaming the audience. It's like, oh, the critic score is at 80 something, but the audience scores at 20. It's like, oh, it's just trolls on the internet, uh review bombing and stuff like that. It's like, well, no, your product was just bad.
just bad, right?
And now that the critics, are actually coming along and actually, not shilling for these corporations as much, now they're going to start blaming them. It's like a critic is just supposed to report facts about the movie and then give what they think about the movie.
Right. And I think
It
most
is
critics
not
want to
their
see a good
job
movie.
to sell the movie to
No,
people.
no, no. I mean, I would say I've never, well, the only one critic I do know, well, maybe two, but I wouldn't. Joe London, who writes for Variety here in Houston, and Nick Nicholson. I don't know if he's still around, but I think they do it because they enjoy going to the movies and they want to be entertained. I'm not think they're going to the movies to see. I'm going to go. I don't. I want to make a bad review. They want to go to the movies to be entertained, but they're just being honest, and that's their job to review the movie. Make a good movie, and you'll get a good review. That's if you don't want to get speeding tickets, guess what? Don't speed.
Yeah, no speed.
It's
If
cause
you
and
want to make a
effect.
good film, try to make a good
Make
film.
a good
Don't just
film. Yeah, we're all
rely
going to have
on that base demographic that's just like, oh, it's got ingrained, fans with it. We're just gonna go with it, right?
right,
And make whatever we want to make, but then we're just gonna blame the fans,
right.
when it doesn't turn out well.
Or that they play the insurance game. I don't know how that game works with making a bad movie and it flops and they get the insurance money, but that sounds like a racket.
Oh yeah, I
You
mean
know,
that's happened a couple of times, and I'm surprised it's not going to happen to Snow White, but I think that's a little too much. Batgirl they did it, WB did it, was like 90 million that they spent. That
right?
was just the budget of the movie. Who knows if they spent any more above that in like marketing already.
Hmm.
But the new Snow White, it's like, man, they're up to like $330 million. That's
Well,
just
this is
the
the one.
budget.
This is the one with Zoe, whatever her name is. They're casting
Yes,
a
Rachel
Hispanic girl.
Rachel
Yeah,
Zegwiller.
is she an Hispanic girl? They're trying to make Snow White Hispanic. Well, she's
She is, I
Hispanic
believe,
portraying a white.
Puerto Rican.
Oh,
She actually she got her fame from doing the West Side Story with Steven Spielberg. She had one of
okay,
the leads in there. But yeah, I mean, this is another reason, like, you know, uh, actors are paid to promote the film. So you need to act a certain way on social media.
right. Oh,
And she just was unleashing on everybody. She was butting in on people's private personal lives on, about information she knew nothing about. And the PR had to actually remove her from the marketing strategy because she was doing
really,
more harm than good. It's like,
right.
why are you paying this person to do PR when they're absolutely destroying your film?
And this has been a couple of years. I mean, this is. I mean,
Oh, they've
this is
been working on Snow White for, I mean, I'd say 5 years probably by now. I mean, they started with, there was this picture that came out so many years ago that had 7 diverse looking range of age, group, race, and one little person. in there, and that was supposed to be the Seven Dwarfs. That's what they were going to go for, and people saw that photo and they were just outraged. So
Right.
right then, from that, they started, okay, we got to start reshooting some stuff.
Right.
And then you had like, now you had, if you've seen the trailer, they're all CG dwarves that actually look like garden gnomes, that you have in
Really.
your lawn. It's like, this is supposed to be a live action film. The only thing live action is like fraction of the sets, Rachel Zegweiler and, a couple of the actors. It's like, why aren't you using, people like Peter Dinklage,
Oh goodness, great. Yeah, they look like they could afford
as
it.
one
That's
of the
right.
dwarves.
There's a bunch of little people around.
if you want to show DEI, why aren't you doing that for,
Everybody.
everybody, right?
Everybody. Yeah.
So yeah, it is just such a PR. I don't, Disney can't just go to the insurance and do a write off of
Right.
330 million.
Right. Yeah. Because they've already shown their hand. They say, well, you can't do it now because you guys really messed up. So no.
Yeah, yeah, we see why, this is costing 330
Right.
million over the
It's not
course of
because
these
of X, it's
years.
because of Y, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
because you've bundled it, and yet I need to look up who's producing this film. But I guarantee, or he might have a job, or they might have a job afterwards because of failing upwards. But no way, 20 years ago, whoever was producing the Snow White would ever work in Hollywood again.
Right.
They would probably have to go to the indie scene, get three, four successes under their belts before they even touch big budget film
Right.
again.
Well, I think that's the tagline of the show, Hollywood's employed. And I think that's why, because it's such a blank show out there. It's just crazy, And then come along with AI. Kevin was in town. Last time I talked to Kevin, I showed him a treatment that of an idea I had, and I used ChatGPT to write a treatment. And he read it, he goes, "We're screwed," because it's exactly what I told him. I pitched it to him, and I said, "Well, this is what ChatGPT come up with." He goes, "Yeah, it's exactly what I would say." He goes, "Yeah, we're screwed," and this is coming from a Hollywood screenwriter and AD. And that's where it is. But why is it happening? Because, well, what you guys are producing, I'll let a computer do something that's even better. And now with these apps that are be able to do the videos and stuff, it's crazy what you can produce now. And
And
so
one of
there,
the main reasons why Hollywood is having problems is they're out of touch with the common masses.
right.
And we're in a global market, especially with these big films. You have to have a global market.
Hmm.
It is not just about the US dollar, it's about across the world, you know. And when you have to make a message in a message in a movie is fine, but you have to make sure this message is a global one.
It's a universal message, right?
Yes, a
That hate
universal
is
message,
bad
not
or
just
good is
your
good,
own
right?
ideology that only affects, 10% of people,
Right.
it's like, you want the Chinese money, well, you got to make sure, your message resonates with Chinese people in China,
Right.
right? It's got to be a global, universal message if you want it to be a super success.
Right.
You can make a message film. A little slice of life. There's nothing harm to that. But if you're making that little slice of life movie and you're
For 300
spending over
million.
$100 million on it and you need it to make 250 million, well,
Good luck.
yeah.
It's got to be universally accepted, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else but in America. But so what is wrong with us? Just why are we? I don't know. It's just like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We as a collective. That's my new term when I talk about we as a collective. I'm
Well,
talking
we've been
America.
getting like self-involved, and then Hollywood has become self-involved in their own echo chamber that they don't even know what's going on in America, let alone the rest of the world.
Right.
Um, and they've been playing it safe for the last couple of decades with like the superhero movies, and these big IPs like Star Wars and stuff like that, where they actually were making money global money, but over the time, their quality has dipped and dipped and dipped and dipped.
Hmm.
But the price of the films have gone up and up and up and
Up
up.
and up and up and up.
And with that quality dipping, they've been making less money, and now it's coming to the apex where they're going to start feeling it. Like I
Right.
said, Disney's going to feel that 330 million Snow White
Hmm.
plus marketing. So marketing is usually half or double or
Right.
or the same amount of your budget, so they need to make $1 billion, over $1 billion on Snow White to make a profit.
Right. And I think one thing that's really hurting them is the cost of entry into making movies is now. I mean, the kids got iPhone 16 Pros. You can make a movie on that. Tangerine won an Academy. Well, it won a big award. I don't think it was an Academy Award, but the cost of the entry point is super cheap now. $500, $1,000, you can be making movies. Yes, it's not going to have all the big elements, but if you want to tell a story that's for your 10% of people you can do it and make money. But then it goes to, like a challenge we have is the distribution. They hold the lines of distribution. That's the key to Hollywood and the distribution. That's
And
the
the
key. Right,
corporations hold the rights to
right,
distributions now.
right.
The studios and those streaming services are owned by big companies that
Yeah,
are carried
right,
about their top line, right?
right.
Um, and it'll be interesting when Danny Boyle's 28 Years Later comes out. He's making sequel to him and his Alex Garland's zombie films. 28
Okay.
Days Later, 28 Weeks Later were the previous ones. He's making three movies. Two of them, I believe, he's already shot because he shot them back to back, but he used iPhones to shoot it.
Hmm.
So these are, I think the studio gave him $75 million to make three films.
Jeez Louise.
And the reason why he used the iPhones was because, well, that's 75 million, right? It's like, what can you do with that much money when people are spending hundreds of millions and,
Right,
full of CGI and stuff? He's going to have to do practical effects. He's using iPhones to cut off the costs. I'm sure he's got lens sets for the phones that were made, particularly.
right,
Been making those for years. You still got lighting and sound that you have to do.
right,
Lighting was like, well, let's do a lot of exterior shots. A
right. Yeah, use
lot
natural
of
light, the
day
sun.
exterior,
Right,
man, right?
right, right. Yeah,
If that's how you cut down on lighting costs, you shoot everything outside during the day, put up a couple of flags and some silks, right? And
right.
you just shoot. But nowadays they don't get that. Everything's got CGI, and we talked about how the creativity has been killed because of that. It's like,
Hmm.
well, whatever you can think of, we'll put in there. It's like,
Right,
well, whatever you can think of has been thought before, so it's not really creative.
right,
Most of the Marvel movies nowadays are, we're cookie cutters. It's like, okay, you're gonna have a big CGI army fight scene somewhere there. It's like it's all been done, right? Everything's been done, everything's been overused, and the CGI is getting worse and worse because of that time crunch, because of the inexperience of people that they
right.
have. You go back 10, 20 years and look at the films that were lauded for their CGI and compare them to nowadays, big budget films, you're going to say 20 years ago it looks better.
Look better. Right, right.
And that you cannot have. This is like the producer mentality. It's like, how can they do something better for way less back then when we're paying double the amount now and we're getting poorer quality?
Right. Well, I
You know,
think
that,
it's
that that's inexcusable, you
too
know.
many. Maria's background is oil and gas, so I have a company that I produce this, but I have to hire a service company. I think too many service companies are selling their bill of goods to these studios, saying we can do X, Y, and Z, so you don't need to do this. But then it puts multiple layers of distraction and diffusion into the product, other than just sticking to your core business and just doing it. You know, um, if somebody's getting paid, what I'm saying is somebody's getting paid to bring all these products on board where it really doesn't affect the story. Just give somebody a job. And that's my main problem with the union. having everybody has to have a job in the airline industry. It's ridiculous. These, I don't know.
Well, you
Just, I mean,
talked about the union, and we just went through a whole bunch of strikes, which also didn't help
no, it didn't help the
the
industry.
production
No,
of films. You cut down the amount, you cut down what the WGA, they have some weird rules where it's like if you're just one person writing a script for a series, that's okay. But as soon as you need, bring in one other person or want to bring in one other writer to help write, the scripts for the series, you can't do that. If it's not just one person writing it, it has to be five at least.
what? Because they want everyone has their gets their hand out.
And then three of those five have to be producer writers. So they're getting paid like 14, 15,000 a week for 10 weeks. And then two of them would be, get like 8,000 because they're just writers, not producers and writers. So that means, well, your budget's gonna be bloated
Right.
there, which means less movies are gonna be made, less TV shows are gonna go production because, well, everything costs more.
Possible.
So all this writer strike, dealt with was the top 20% that was already making the most money of these writers. They're going to be fine and they're going to make more money. But these people that are on the bottom end of the scale, the ones that are actually hardworking and trying everything they can to get jobs, they're not going to be able to find work at all
Yeah.
because there's less productions going on.
Yeah.
And that is just the trend that's been going and going and going. And unions are great. Don't get me wrong. They protect the people a lot. They give benefits to the people. They are needed, at times. But nowadays, it seems like it's only there to protect the top members of it. It's only there to protect, certain people. The lower people, the people actually that need that protection, that need that security, they aren't reaping the benefits at all.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a guy on TikTok I follow, Patrick. I can't think of his name, but he talks a lot about how Hollywood is it's just killing itself, and it's true. And it's a shame because I like watching movies. I like making movies, but you know, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, and the corporations are the big reason why this is happening. They only care about the bottom line. They don't care about the art. You know, they care about the money, and when the money doesn't show up, they do everything to blame anyone else but themselves.
Right.
Oh, the fans didn't like it. It's their fault. It's the fans' fault they didn't like it. It had nothing to do with our filmmakers or the actors
The
or
crappy script or the
poor
terrible CG.
script or poor CGI. It's their fault. And you can only sustain that for so long. You keep telling someone that it's their fault that, something that they had no control of didn't
Right.
do well, or you can't tell me to like something. You can't force someone to like something. If they don't
Mm-mm.
like it, it's not their fault they didn't like it.
Right.
It's just the fact that it didn't resonate with them. And if it didn't
Right.
resonate with them, you got to take a look at why didn't it? Did I
Yeah.
make a film that was for me? Did I make a fan fiction film?
Mhm.
Did I make something that only I would enjoy and someone who doesn't think exactly like me won't like it?
Yeah.
You know, these are things that they have to start figuring out. Well, let's take a
Yeah.
little break and then we'll be right back and we'll
Okay.
continue our conversation.
Thanks. So we're
All right,
back,
we are back.
back
We're
from a
talking
break.
about the implosion of Hollywood.
The implosion of Hollywood.
And one of the another main reason, they're all main reasons. Like I said, tons of variables, is the over politicizing message and various things that go on into the films nowadays.
Oh yeah, they're the long commercials
Yeah. And,
and pushing an agenda.
and when you deal with ideology, like I said, it doesn't affect that universal message.
Mm-mm.
What's good for here is not good for other places.
Right around the world. Right.
Um, And they've known that for sure, and they've done it on micro things, removing people from posters. Star Wars, they removed John Bodega, his face from their poster in China. I mean,
And they
Little
took away the
Mermaid, they
gun.
did something like that in for the
What's that?
Chinese market.
E.T. They did away with the gun.
Yeah, I mean, it, they do it, shamelessly. Like I said, every movie is going to have a message. Every
Right,
movie is going to have a moral, right? The thing is like you got to make it interwoven into the story.
right.
Can't just be flat, smack you in the face, or feel like you're preaching to them. Like it's like, hey,
Hmm.
you need to get this. If you don't get this, you're a bad person, right? It's
Hmm.
like you can't do that. You got to make someone think for themselves and come to that realization, right?
Well,
Tell the
because
story
we live
that's
in a nanny state and a nanny world, and the people that are, control the purse strings, or they think they know better than, like our government, let let me fail on my own, let me make my own decisions. And it's that's why it just I don't watch the news. I don't want I just check the weather and look at the traffic to be like going to work and keep my head down and stay out of trouble. But they just some of these movies, big old or old that or these just it's frustrating, especially the kids
yeah. I
movies
mean,
because they're
if AI
indoctrinating the
wasn't so
kids.
good, I would assume AI was writing all these stories that are out nowadays because they are so surface level, right?
Right,
Um, the movie we talked about last episode, Silence of the Lambs, like I said, it dealt with, a strong female character in a male-dominated world,
right,
and she dealt with it perfectly. It was all intertwined in the story. It wasn't straight in your face.
right,
She never said, "Oh, it's so hard for a woman in this male-dominated world."
right,
Those lines
right,
never had to come out of her mouth to
right,
get that point,
right.
right? And nowadays, they don't try to do it subtly. They'll just literally say that lines like, "Oh man, chauvinist male, it's so hard in this male-dominated world, this patriarchy." This
Yeah,
would be dialogue literally in the movie. It's like, don't show, don't
yeah.
tell, show,
So yeah, is
right?
that what's the name? Rick Boyd, right?
Yeah,
Don't
I
show,
mean,
tell.
we're in a visual medium. We go to a movie for escapism. That is the number one goal of films. It has been forever. Escapism. We
Right,
don't go to a film to relive life and watch the news, right? You say you don't want to watch the news. So why would you want to watch a film that's all about everything that you would see and deal with
right.
that's on the
I
news?
need a release, right? I need a release, right?
You just want to go to the movie. You want to sit down for 2 hours, enjoy a good story.
And
And
forget
if
about
you
it. Yeah,
learn something on your way, then you do, you
right.
know. But
Yeah.
if you have
Don't.
something that feels preachy and has something that feels so close to our reality and it's got all of our reality's problems in it, it is just so turn off.
Mhm.
And this look at Star Wars. Star Wars was pure escapism. It's dealing with a galaxy far, far away. And what
Mhm.
has Disney done is put all of our political and ideology into Star Wars.
Mhm.
Even in The Mandalorian, there was like a scene, like season 3, where they had the droids that went to a bar and plugged themselves in, and they were getting drunk or high off of something, and they were having existential crises. It's
What?
like that is something that you see in Futurama, a
Right.
comedy satire.
Right.
It's like these droids were supposed to be white. Their memories were white, so they wouldn't become sentient and stuff like that. But
Right.
now they're acting like they are humans. They're giving human characteristics to these droids. And it's like, that makes no sense. Don't put our ideology and what's going on, our politics, and so on, into a fantasy world that has nothing to do with Earth, that has
Mhm.
nothing to do with humans. Every single person in Star Wars is an alien.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know,
There's no point of reference, right?
yeah, you know the
That's true, right? Yeah. They're not of this world, right?
you know even in comic books, Batman and stuff like that, a lot of them are in their own fictional cities,
Hmm.
in their fictional, worlds. Some of them, yeah, they mention, America, Captain America, and of course, like that, and mention like New York and stuff like that. But some of them, back when they were created, Superman was first created, it didn't have any of that. That was Metropolis.
Hmm.
He might want had a president, but I don't even think they used the president of the United States. They never defined that much, right? This is a fantasy world. It has nothing to do with our world. So why are you going to put in our problems in there?
Right, right.
Now, like I said, it's okay to show a message. If you want to put some kind of message in there and interwoven it smartly and subtly, and make sense, and that's fine. But turning every movie
Into an
into
advertisement for the,
our
yeah,
world and
they're
dealing with
agenda
our
based. Yeah,
problems,
yeah,
it
agenda based
doesn't
filmmaking. That's what
work.
it is. Agenda based filmmaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think there was a great series several years ago when they remade Battlestar Galactica, which they did it so well where they deal with certain problems that our society has occurred, but they didn't straight out and put it in there like they do
Hmm.
shamelessly now. It's like,
Yeah.
when you're dealing with a world that has nothing to do with the earth, has nothing to do with the United States or China or Russia or Ukraine or Africa and Europe, so on, so on. They can do whatever you want, and you're dealing with global issues instead
Hmm.
of just singular issues that, like I said, they're almost writing almost fan fiction nowadays,
Hmm.
where it's like they're only dealing with ideas that affect them personally.
Right.
And when you do that, and you make something that's that personal to you, you're losing sight on societal issues.
Right. Yeah, on a global scale.
Global, universal, where everyone can connect. It's like if you, it's almost like films are being made by people that if you're having a conversation with them, all they say is I blah 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 blah, I blah blah blah, me blah 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 blah. The narcissism just shows constantly, where it's like they don't care anything that's out of their bubble.
Right.
They don't care that anyone thinks a different way, because if they think a different way, they just don't exist. And that is something you can't do in films, because in art and films, you're not making it for yourself. You can make a film and and a painting and other art for yourself,
You know who's going to look
but
at it.
the
No one's
main
going to watch
goal
it
is for everyone to see it and
for the
interpret
masses.
what
Right.
they how does it make them feel, right?
Right. Yeah.
And Hollywood has just lost that sense. They lost the sense of, the everyday people who want to escape from our reality
Right.
and be
Right.
entertained.
Right. And forget about their problem for a while.
Yeah,
All
and
right. Yeah.
to do that, we're going to need to continue to go into more of the independent films.
Yeah.
We're going to have to start learning how to spend less money, which
Right.
does mean less people have jobs. You're going to have to
Right.
do smaller crew, smaller restricted things. It might take a little bit longer to make something, but put in that effort, be on budget, do more practical things, do smaller stories, like Silence of the Lambs. Don't do anything that's CG heavy, If you got something that need to do, start thinking creatively. Don't be crutched by, we'll fix it in post, we'll do some CGI, and that's how we'll get it done. No, it's
Right.
like if you can't do this something practically, think of something creatively to work with what you got.
Right. We've done that.
Yeah, and independent films, independent studios, get away from the corporations. Let the corporations control distribution. But nowadays, if you're an independent film, you make and you have fire with the script, make it, shop it to Netflix.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the new streamline. Don't worry about the box office. Don't worry about the theaters. If you got something, if you got fire, if you got a good story, make it. If it's even with your cell phones,
Right.
do it. If it's good, someone's going to pick it up. Netflix is going to pick it up. Amazon's going to pick it up,
Yeah,
right?
that's what we need. Take it, take independent, stay independent.
Stay independent. All right. So next week, we might talk about a particular good movie that we mentioned before.
Oh yeah, you don't let the cat. Well, yeah, yeah. I need to watch it. You have to send me the notes. I've already forgot the name. Don't tell me the name. Shh. Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah, we'll have a good, interesting one, something that's unique, something that's dealing with perspective, and that's something that we all are lacking nowadays in Hollywood, especially.
Right. Good.
So, thank you for watching again. Thank you for
Yeah. Thank
listening.
you.
Make sure you check us out on Spotify,
My
Apple
heart.
Podcast,
Up on YouTube.
iHeartRadio, YouTube, and I believe that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Good. I'm off to. Oh yeah, we got things to talk about for Manny and such. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you guys, and we'll talk again next week.